welcome back to EchoVideo Podcast, episode 9. Today we're talking about movies we thought we liked more than we thought we would when we first saw it. I'm your host, Hunter Tapley. We're just powering through at this point. I'm not fucking recutting again. I'm your host, Hunter Tapley. Joining me today is Bart Streppel and Shawn Gorsline. How's it going, guys?
It's going well. I didn't mean to laugh. Just as soon as you introduced us, the audio cut out for like 5 seconds.
This is like our
the whole
eighth.
thing crashed. But I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Just a little curse today.
Yeah, this is like we've been away. We've been away for a couple weeks, or 2 weeks, a week. No, I think we were 2.
Yeah,
I
2
think
weeks.
We were 2
today,
weeks because we've had some issues with audio and uploading, and we've all been kind of working. So I do apologize on the delay for this episode. So hopefully we're back to a regular recording schedule, and we'll have getting back to a relatively more consistent upload schedule. So just before we get into today's topic, 2 things. During our kind of break, I was reminded of a funny story. Fortunately, our good buddy Parker isn't here. I was gonna wait to tell it, but I figured next week the conversation would be a bit more heavy, so I figured why not just tell it today. That was a while ago, back when we were in school. We were invited to go. Well, some of us were invited to go to something called Doc Fest, which was they showed a bunch of documentaries at the local theater where we went to school. And there was a couple of documentaries, and there were some pretty good ones. And there were some really interesting ones that I was way more interested in seeing, but apparently everyone wanted to watch the shoe shining documentary called Shiners. No disrespect to the film, it is really well done. Sure. It's a really good film. We ended up watching that, and through the whole movie we're just kind of sitting there amongst ourselves. It's I think it was us and 4 other friends, I want to say. And I think it was Toronto, but there was one shoe shiner in Toronto, and we're all sitting there quietly, and then there's a close-up of a street sign, and the street sign says Gay Street. And immediately in my head, I think about making a joke, but I'm like, this is like respectful. There's people here that are just here to watch this movie and stuff. And then I'm kind of ignoring, I'm trying to ignore, making a joke. And I fucking listen over and I hear Parker going, Hunter. And I look over and he's like, it said gay. We're laughing our heads off in the theater. It was the funny, I don't know, I was just reminded of that, and I had a fucking solid laugh at that the other day. Oh my goodness, I was like, the worst time to friggin' be laughing at shit like that, but no, it was pretty funny. So just kind of a funny little story. And again, one more thing, is just kind of before we get started, was there anything in the news recently in gaming, movies, anything like that you guys wanted to talk about? Bart, if you wanted to start us off here, if you have anything.
Yeah, I'll go. Earlier today, I saw that the writers of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, the 2021, are making Ace Ventura 3, which I think is incredible, and I'm very excited for that, because if you've been following the podcast, we have talked about Ace Ventura before, and it's got a soft spot. I've got a soft spot for it, so yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes.
Wow, I had no
That's
idea
good.
about that.
Yeah, I don't think
that's all I got.
No, that's good. I don't think I heard that. I don't think I heard of that, so that's good to know. What about you, Shawn?
I don't have too much. I've been a little bit busier this week myself, but Animal Crossing had an update for its anniversary this week.
I gotta
it's
sign
cool
back in.
after playing Animal Crossing through the year to have kind of it be marked off as like, hey, it's been a year now, which is crazy to think, but it has been. The update itself is finally the first quality of life change for the game, because they added a bunch of custom design slots, which is something that people have been asking for since the start of the game. So it took Nintendo a year, but they got around to it eventually.
Finally.
Proud of them.
Now,
speaking of Animal Crossing, real quick, Doom Eternal has reached
yes,
the
of
1 year
course.
anniversary, and the Old Gods, I think Part 2 DLC came out yesterday, which I'm very
Yeah.
excited to play.
Nice. So yeah, any other news there, Sean, or was that
I mean,
basically
that's
it?
really
Or...
all I'm thinking of that's coming to my mind right now. But
So there's one game I saw it yesterday, and I think if you guys saw the trailer, you know what I'm going to talk about. I know Sean might, but I'm not
okay.
sure about Bart. But Square Enix did a big presentation, and I mean, I'm a big Life is Strange fan, and they finally announced the third game. And I mean, after playing Don't Nod's most recent installment with Twin Mirrors, that was fucking awful. I hate that. Sucked. That was a bad game. Don't play that game. Tell me why I heard mix. I mean, me personally, I haven't finished it because it was so boring. I think we talked about this in the first episode. I feel like I talked about it, or at least briefly did. If not,
I think you may have mentioned it, yeah.
I was not a fan of Tell Me Why. It was pretty boring, and it just was boring. It just didn't do anything. It didn't get excited fast. So I do have to finish that. I haven't finished it, so maybe that's why it gets better.
Yeah. Tell Me Why never grabbed me. I actually want to play it or anything. It didn't appeal to me.
So one of these days I will re-download it and try to finish it all the way through just to see maybe if it gets better along the way. But I did see that it got announced, and I saw the trailer, and I have to say it looks like steps in the right direction. I mean, I'll definitely talk about Life is Strange way more in depth in the future for sure. A lot of my complaints are the voice acting can be atrocious, the writing can be ungodly awful, and the graphics for the time of its release looked like a PlayStation 2 game. Looked like a PlayStation 2 game. But it looks like it. I mean, I can't really say for the writing, but from what I've seen from the trailers, it was a fairly long trailer. I mean, the graphics look a lot better, look a lot nicer. The voice acting didn't. I mean, it's not a very long trailer, so I can't say that the voice acting is perfect right now, but it seemed better, and hopefully that the writing is better, because that is my main complaint, is the writing. No, it looks good. I think they've, which was surprising to me. Well, which wasn't really surprising, but they're finally integrating motion capture into the games.
Yeah.
Which I thought was weird. So hopefully that doesn't make it look as weird or uncanny as it did in the first couple. So I mean it looks like it steps in the right direction, and I'm excited for it. So I'm definitely going to be picking that up. And it's not episodic anymore, which I actually really liked. It's once it's released, it's done, because that was the issue I had with the first two, was that it was like, oh, it's releasing like May 2019, but it's finishing like December 2020. It's like no.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, it shouldn't take that long. They just release it all in one go, or don't release it at all. But well, it's fine. So it seems like steps in the right direction. I'm pretty excited. So that was a pretty big announcement for me. Other than that, that's pretty much it for news-wise, it seems. So we can just jump into today's topic. Again, that's movies when we watched. That's movies we didn't think we'd like as much as we did when we first saw them. So maybe we watched them knowing oh, this is a good movie. And then once we finished it, we liked it a lot more than we thought we would. So I mean, without further ado, I guess I'll start. So the first film that I want to talk about is the film House from 1977. That's a Japanese film directed by, give me one second here, directed by Nobuhiko Obayashi. Might be pronouncing that wrong. Anyway, it's from 1977. It's very kind of similarly edited and colorized in the way that Mario Bava does his films. So, I mean, I've talked about Mario Bava before on the podcast, and I'm a big fan of his, so I was obviously a big fan of this film. So the other thing I really liked about this film is it was inspired by the director's like the director's daughter had a lot to say about this film, had a lot of input into this film, sorry, and she basically told, like, her dad, like the director basically asked her what scares her, and then she gave him all the ideas. And one of the main reasons I like this film so much is that it kind of gets better the more you look back on it. Like, your first viewing might be a little weird, or might be thinking it's a little weird of a film, or because even for the 70s, I think the effects are pretty off and pretty bad for the time even. But when you go back, the director really wanted the film to have kind of like almost look like a storybook or a book that a child would write or draw. So he made it look like all the effects look like a child had a say in it. So it kind of gets better the more you watch it, in my opinion anyways. But the other thing I really like, the names. I don't know why, they just kind of make me laugh whenever I hear them. I mean, all the names are like Sweet, Melody. I think one of them's name was Kung Fu, Mac, and Gorgeous. That's all the main. I mean, I think I'm missing one, but like the funniest part was one of them's name was Mac, and she's fat, and that's the whole character. And like in the movie, she's not even that fat. Like, she's just kind of chubby. Like, I would not call her fat at all. And they're just like, oh man, she's so fat, and they're just like horrifically bullying her throughout the whole movie. And it's like, she's not even fat. Great. Like, what are you guys talking about?
That's fun.
So other than that, that's nothing. That's not even a complaint. It's just kind of something I laugh at every time I watch it. But I mean, other things that I would say is that before I continue on, sorry, I'm just going to pass the conversation on. What do you guys think, or have you seen it, Bart? I know that we watched it the one time a while ago, so I don't know if you still have an opinion, but
yes. Yeah, I remember you, Bryce, and we all watched together at my place for the first time, I believe, if I'm correct. Yeah, and I remember Bryce and I fell asleep, so, that's good. But I think we only fell asleep in the last 10 minutes or so, and it wasn't because the movie was boring. It was just, I think we were just tired or whatnot. But I remember the movie being very odd. It's set up kind of like a summer campy kind of thing, like a slumber party. Like these girls all go to this house and whatnot, and then it kind of, in my mind, to simplify it and reduce it, it kind of. Can you remember the movie Monster House, like the cartoon? Yeah. Kind of like that, but more serious and over the top and strange. It was a very strange film. So, an opinion, not so much, but I remember it, yes, vividly. It's not one of those movies you can easily forget.
It's definitely a weird movie. Sean, have you seen it before, or?
I have not, but at the same time, it sounds interesting. Because like if you say it's similar to Monster House, like I actually, I don't know. It was maybe like a couple of years ago. I saw like a trailer for Monster House. By the way, can I just say that film, visually, in my opinion, does not hold up well. Like it looks terrible.
No, it looks awful. It looks like a PlayStation 2 Chicken Little game. It looks terrible.
So at least that's one thing that I guess, even if it's like anything else that I can say, is that I guess it'll not suffer from that problem that Monster House did of not holding up. But no, I've never actually heard of it. So
there's some wild effects in this. Like I read some more about this movie, and then I watched it again, and I liked it a little bit more, because I find that the more you kind of read up on it and learn how the director did it, it kind of gets a little funnier, kind of a little better. Like, there's some blue screen, so I mean, some horrible blue screen from the 70s, but then there's also like they did it to their to some of like the body parts and stuff. You know how he did it? You would think, oh, it's the blue screen. They don't not have blue clothing in the 70s. No, he just painted their bodies with blue paint. Like any body part that's comped, he just painted them blue. I don't know why, but he did it.
Effort.
And
that's a pretty interesting way to go about it. Yeah, it'd be hard to keep it like consistently blue.
I'm not sure what scene it is, but there was a nude scene. I think it might be at the end. I think there's 2 nude scenes in this movie where one of the actresses is nude, and she was really uncomfortable with doing it. But then I believe the aunt that they're visiting, who was like a lot older than the other actresses, in order to make the one girl be more comfortable, she just got fully naked and stood off set fully naked while they directed the scene around her. So while she's naked on set, there's another chick naked behind that you don't see behind the camera, just fully naked for no reason other than to make the other girl comfortable. So it's kind of funny to think about that.
Weird.
It's super funny.
That brings a whole different dimension to like picturing your audience naked. It's interesting.
There's I want to say that the piano scene inspired Mario 64. I can't confirm that though. There's a scene where a piano literally eats somebody.
Oh my god! Wow.
That was a scary scene when you just jump on it randomly and all of a sudden it comes alive and eats you, and it
kind of comes like it, and it's weird as hell watching this scene. Like it's not like a typical so think about a piano eating somebody. Think about that scene in your head. When you watch the movie, I can guarantee you it won't be anything close to what you're picturing in your head. I can guarantee that. It's a great film. It's super fun. You're not meant to take it too seriously. I'm not sure if I already mentioned this, but basically when this film came out, it came out in a time when a lot of the films in Japan that were being released were erotic films, I believe. And the director said that he was kind of really sick of erotic films coming, and he wanted a film to take his daughter to. So he basically took a bunch of his daughter's ideas of like horror and stuff, put them into a movie, and then made the movie. So it came out in a time when there wasn't a lot of movies for other people to watch, as opposed to what was being released at the time in the 70s. So, in my opinion, it is a film that, for me, gets better the more I watch it, and it's a fun watch. And if you haven't watched it, I do recommend you watching it. So Bart, we'll move on to you next. What film did you bring?
Alrighty, Roo. Well, I brought American Beauty, the Best Picture winner, Sam Mendes film, which is, very impressive that his very first film won Best Picture, but we'll gloss past that. So I think for me, it was primarily the time that I watched this movie, more so than like actually being opposed to it, because I was always familiar with the plastic bag in the wind scene, and I always thought it was like kind of, cheesy and artsy for artsy's sake, so I always kind of avoided it. But I think one day I just picked it up somewhere, it was on sale or something, and I was like, you know what the heck, why not? So I picked this up in like grade 10 maybe, which, in high school everyone's just having a continuous identity crisis. At least, that's kind of how I see high school. And this film is basically an identity crisis and a critique on appearances and artificial beauty. So I think for like a high school student, this is like the ideal film to watch, like kind of lift up your rebellious spirit. I suppose like even the tagline is "Look closer," like appearances aren't really what they are. So I guess I'll give a quick synopsis. Basically, it's set in suburban America. You got Kevin Spacey and his like nuclear family. They're just going day by day. And then one day Kevin Spacey is just sick of ordinary life and wants to, do something new. He kind of has a midlife crisis, basically. But then all the other characters subsequently also have their own identity crisis. And everybody just wants to do something different. And Yeah, so basically at its core, like American Beauty, which is actually a flower, which is kind of cool. There's a rose called American Beauty, where on the outside it's like any other rose, but on the inside it's like rotting to the core,
Okay.
which is interesting. And that's kind of what the movie itself is. Like once you look closer, you kind of, see what's really there. And before I dive too deeply into it,
Yeah,
have you guys seen it?
I've seen it. I've seen it a couple. I guess this year. Did I lose you, or are you still there?
No, I'm still here.
All right, perfect. Oh, sorry. I did see this film. I watched it a couple. I guess a couple months ago. Back. Maybe I watched this last year. I can't remember. Not really important, but I did remember liking it a little bit more because I remember. I think it was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards and stuff, and that kind of. Not that have anything against the Academy Awards, but whenever I see that, I just kind of glance over it because it's just kind of like,
it. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's just something about the Academy Awards that just kind of keeps me away from movies a little bit more, which is weird. I don't know why.
Well, it's what you said last week, right? Like if other people like it, you're like, yeah, I guess I'll hate it.
Pretty much. I mean, I figure that. Yeah. It just kind of kept me away for some reason. I finally did end up watching it. I did really enjoy it. I thought it was, I thought it was good. I wasn't too crazy about it. I remember being kind of weird at times. God bless that Kevin Spacey wasn't a pedophile, but that's up for debate now more than ever. But the funny part about this was sorry, just the last kind of notes I had for now was this film was released before, so there was a span of time in the 90s before 9/11 when all that was when life was good, and the thing that kept people down was that they were working in a cubicle and they were sick of modern life of go to work, pay debt, go to work, pay debt. And that's kind of when this film was released, and that's kind of what the film is. Like, I think, what's another film? The Matrix is a good example of it, and Fight Club are good examples of this, where they're kind of...
It was like a national
they were released in a time when everyone was just basically living the same life, and they were all kind of sick of it and stuff. So it's just an interesting fact there about... Just an interesting fact for people that might not have known that, but that's pretty much the notes. I mean, it was a good film. I had really no grievances with it. Really well shot, really well acted, really well directed. Like you said, I didn't know it was Sam Mendes' first film, so I mean, he hit it out of the park with this one. I did enjoy it. I agree with you. It is a good film. I agree with you. Sean, what are your notes on it?
Well, Bart, similar to you, before I watched this film, I pretty much thought it was kind of that artsy sort of film, because really all I knew, again, was also that plastic bag scene. I was kind of forced into watching this movie in a way, because I watched this in like my high school film class, and it was just like one of our things we had to watch for like study. But I mean, after watching it, it was really good, actually. It definitely wasn't something I was expecting. It has been a while since I've watched it, so I don't really remember too much specifically on it. But I do remember liking, actually, just in a cinematography sort of sense. There's a few parts of the movie where it's like taking place at night, and I remember some shot specifically where I don't know if it was Kevin Spacey looking through a window. Somebody was looking through a window, and it was like brightly lit in somebody's house, but it was nighttime outside and like fairly dark. And I don't know. Whenever I think of that movie, that's like one shot that I think of, because I like the lighting in that shot. It was like
Isn't that where the military dad thinks his son's buying, like, thinks that his son's beating off Kevin Spacey in the garage?
I think that might be what it is. I think that might be it. Yeah, so the scene itself is very contradictory, but yes.
There might be other scenes of that, but that's the only one I can think of.
Yeah, I'm thinking you're right.
There might honestly be.
I don't know. I remember that like just as a visual, it stuck with me because I like the lighting there. It's just it's mixes like it's bright enough that you can see what's going on. It doesn't look too dark, but it gives across the feeling of it being nighttime and kind of not lit, but it's also lit well. I don't know. It's a weird shot that I always think of when it comes to like nighttime stuff.
For sure. And the others like you said, the cinematography is really good. I mean, I personally really enjoyed kind of the obvious shot that I really liked is the one where the girl's laying down in the field of roses.
Oh yeah, of course.
And you kind of slowly zoom in. I mean that
in the bathtub.
Awesome. Like, it's really well shot. It really looks really nice. It's a great shot. I mean, what more is there?
I think what's good about that scene too is like it's fantastical. Like it's in the mind of Lester, like it's his dream, but it doesn't really explicitly tell you. But you can tell by the way it's lit. Like it's just superficially bright.
Yeah.
Compared to the other scenes, like the lighting plays a big part in the film, which I think it's not just like banging you over the head like this is a dream sequence, with like some wavy edits or whatnot.
Yeah.
It's almost like subliminal lighting.
It's good. And yeah.
Some might say
For
it's
sure.
motivated.
Yeah.
He said it.
Little inside joke there, little comedy joke.
Oh boy. Just going off that real quick, like just the way outside of the narrative, how like the techniques support the actual narrative. The editing is really cool. So it'll be like Lester talking to his daughter Jane, for example. And then it'll cut, like it'll be inside them talking, you can hear the dialogue and whatnot. But then it'll cut to like outside, and you can't hear the dialogue, and it'll just cut away like mid-conversation. And I think that supports the idea that, she's supposed to look past the dialogue. Like people can say a lot of things, like put up a persona, put up a facade, but you're supposed to look past it, at his face, like at his actions, how he's actually...
Yeah, it like forces you to look
like
at the emotions.
Is he smiling? Is he sad?
Conversation rather than the dialogue,
Yeah. Exactly, like the actions speak louder than words.
All right.
There's a lot to really go into with this film. If you guys want to keep talking about it, but we can move on. We can stay on this. Whatever. I'm happy.
No, that's pretty much all I've had to say. It was a really good movie. I did really enjoy it. I did really like the scene at the drive-thru when he catches his wife.
Yeah, were you singing American Woman?
When he catches his wife with the guy she's cheating with in the drive-thru.
Yes.
And he's just like, it's just like this super awkward but super funny scene where he's like basically calling her out, and he's just working at the I don't know, I always laughed at that. I thought that was always super funny. That's about all that I had to say about that scene. But
yeah, real quick before we move on there, just like I started with saying that I watched this movie at high school, which I felt was a pretty pivotal time to watch it. I just say that because there's a cool parallel between Jane, the daughter, and Lester, Kevin Spacey, like who's having his midlife crisis, and through his actions he keeps basically regressing back to his teenage years. Like he's smoking pot, he's working out all the time, he's got this crush on this beautiful girl, he works at this fast food chain, and he's buying like a Firebird. Like basically he's trying to artificially go back in time. So I don't know, that kind of stood out to me, like, pave your identity, see who you want to be before you regret it, and just kind of artificially make up for it. That's why it stood out to me.
And I feel like
overall,
it's kind of a film, like you said, that could be watched by anyone, really. By kind of like, I feel like it's not, like you said, it kind of spoke to you in high school, but I feel like if you were a bit older, going through what Kevin Spacey's character was going through, it might kind of speak out to you there as well. So I feel like it's a film that can be watched kind of throughout your life and kind of look back on. So it's not a film that kind of like, it's not a film Absolutely. That I can only watch it at this time because this is the only time I'll get it. Like, I won't like it's not a film that's specific to an age group or specific to a group. It's kind of for everyone, and I feel like there's definitely a character or persona in the film that everyone could kind of latch onto. And like you said, I mean, no character in this film, I mean, at least from what I remember, is like a likable character. Like everyone's kind of an ass in this movie. Like no one's like, oh, I'm like, you're not really rooting for anybody, if I remember. Like, I mean, kind of Kevin Spacey, but I mean, you're the only reason I've kind of latched on, like kind of was rooting for him, per se, was because you kind of spend most of the film with him. But kind of, I mean, even he's an ass. Kind of all the characters I find are not really great people.
Yeah, it's kind of like your Walter White. Like he's such a likable character on his own, but like you know that what he's doing is like questionable at best. So, and just a final thing, the scene with Colonel Frank and Kevin Spacey when they're out in the rain in the driveway and they kiss broke my heart, man. That was so sad where they kiss, and then Lester's like, oh, but like the entire movie the Colonel has been like, I don't know, aggressively against
very homophobic
gay marriage and like his gay neighbors and whatnot. It just kind of broke my heart. He ended up.
You would not.
He was gay.
You would not find him on Gay Street. I'll tell you that much. But other than that,
full circle. Yeah, that's all I'll say.
So yeah, definitely, like you said. I mean, good movie, worth watching. Yeah, definitely worth a watch, I'd say. Don't let separate the art from the artist is what I'll say, because I wasn't really keen on watching this film, for the Oscars, and then when all that kind of bullshit, well, not bullshit, but all that fucking crap came out about Kevin Spacey, you have to kind of separate yourself from that stuff. I'm not saying what he did was right, I'm not saying what he did was wrong. I'm getting a little too political here, so I'll kind of wrap myself up, but so you gotta separate the art from the artist, and just kind of separate yourself from that. And I don't blame you if you don't want to see this movie because of that, but if you can, then give it a shot, because it is a good movie. It is worth watching. Sam Mendes is a great director. That's all I'm gonna say before this turns into a big political argument, but definitely just think of that before watching before giving it a watch. So anyways, we'll move on to Sean. Sean, what movie did you bring today?
Okay, so it's kind of, in general, it's the series as a whole, but kind of more specifically, it's so I have like Harry Potter, and first off, I'm not a Harry Potter fan to the point where it's like if you say anything bad, I'm gonna like punch your face in, Yeah,
just a literal religion.
Like I enjoy the movies, but they're not brought down by God or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So like when I was younger, when I was a real old youngin, I watched I'm pretty sure just like my parents at the time just put on like the first Harry Potter movie, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fine movie. But at the same time, I was young enough where pretty much anything that was like slightly, you didn't really have to think about it too much, and visually it looked interesting, was like, yep, that's a great 10 out of 10 movie. So like the first movie I liked that way, the second movie I liked, but then by the time I got to the third movie is where the movie started kind of becoming more serious, and so I didn't really like it at the time. So I never really watched any Harry Potter movies after that. I didn't really think much of it until like maybe when I was like maybe like 16 or so. And I was like, you know what? I should watch those movies and actually give them a chance. Because I never really have done that after I watched the first two. So then I went back to watch like the third Harry Potter movie, and I really enjoyed it. And then I just watched the rest of them, and they were great. I really liked the movies. The thing is, it's kind of weird. So like going into it, knowing that there's that huge sort of like fan base behind the movies, I felt like I had to either like them or just hate them and not say anything.
Yeah.
So like when I got into watching the third one, I was like, hopefully I at least don't like completely hate it. If I had to give my opinions on the movies in general, though, I would say like the first two are decent, but they definitely feel more like kids' movies, which is probably why I liked them initially. And then like from there on, they're definitely more serious. But I would say like the third movie's probably the strongest, or the fourth movie. I really enjoy the fourth movie as well. And then the fifth movie for me is kind of like a sort of a. It's not bad, but on its own, I think it's definitely the weakest of them. And then the sixth movie.
That's the Goblet of Fire, right?
No,
Yeah,
the
it's Order of
fifth
the
one's
Phoenix.
Order of the Phoenix.
Oh yeah, I agree with you there. I was gonna say
Goblet of Fire is
I love the
great.
Goblet of Fire.
That's the fourth one. Fifth one, yeah, Order of the Phoenix. Overall, it's just kind of it's a lot more of a casual movie. However, it does have like probably one of the better fight scenes at the end of the movie. And then the sixth movie is also great. And I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've actually seen both Seven Part 1 and 2. Not that they were bad, I just don't find them like as memorable overall. So I haven't watched those in a while. But yeah, just overall, like I think the greater thing is too is if there's like a major sort of film series or something like that, or something that has a big fan base behind it that might seem a little intimidating, I'd still say try to watch the movie without putting that kind of like weight on yourself to like think you have to either like it or just, you know, people are gonna hate you for it. I think regardless, you just watch a movie for the sake of enjoying a movie. Because like
Absolutely.
that's the reason why I didn't watch it for so long, was just because I was like, I feel like I'm getting into something that's probably not for me. But I've just kind of avoided the fan base, and I'm just like, yeah, they're fine movies. I'm not going to actively go out of my way to be like, yeah, I love those movies so much. But they're fine.
I remember like Harry Potter is like one of the biggest things since Star Wars, I would say. If not, I wouldn't say it's bigger than Star Wars, but it definitely is.
It was a cultural
thing.
phenomenon. Yeah, it was because everywhere. It still is.
Like, I remember, like where I live, it's nobody town. Nobody lives. Like there's maybe like 20 people that live where I live. It's not a big town. It's not a big town. It's not a super small town, but it's not a big town. And I remember this nobody bookstore had like a line around the block when Deathly Hallows, the book, was being released. And there was like a midnight release of the book. I don't know if you were living there at the time, Bart, but there was quite literally a line behind.
Oh, at the Indigo at the mall?
No, not the Indigo, but you know where the Mussolini's down where the Home Hardware is?
Oh yes,
there was
Wordsworth books. No,
it was called
like
I think it was called the Book Nook.
It's amazing.
And it was a
tiny.
it was like it was literally five. Like it was like one shelf, and all they really sold were a couple of kids' books and like kind of not a lot. Like they had no selection. And I remember there was a line almost all the way up Main Street to get, because they had I think they said they had a bunch of copies of Deathly Hallows and they were releasing it at midnight. And it's like, I've never seen anyone in this bookstore besides the tellers. Like now it's got a line around the block.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness. So
and for reference, Main Street is a big street.
Oh, it's
a long street.
It's huge. It's huge as hell. So it's not like a tiny. There was probably people from the town over coming to our town. Like there was probably people from all around coming to our town to get this book, because I don't know the whole story with how much got released. I doubt it was like, I'm sure it's easier to print books than it is certain other things, so I'm sure other stores had it, but I don't know the whole story. I just remember when that got released, it was like a big thing, and I honestly had never seen a line that big in where I live. So just, yeah, like you said, I've heard people that are really big fans of the books say that the movies are awful, and I've heard really big fans of the movies. I never heard people talk badly about the books, but I've heard that some people don't like the movies. And like you said, you shouldn't judge. Like, I think the movies are, especially if you haven't read the books, I think they're fair. Like a fair starting point, at least. Or at least a reference so you know what everyone was talking about when they're talking about Harry Potter. You know what I mean? So it's like you weren't left in the dark, so now you can kind of add to the conversation. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely know where you're coming from, because I definitely knew some people that where it's like, oh, I like the Order of the Phoenix, and then you hear this nobody from 2 tables over tell you how stupid your opinion is for liking the movie better than the book, and you're like, dude, it's like, you're like, oh, that's cool. Go scratch your neck beard elsewhere, sir. Go tip your fedora elsewhere, please. But no, I definitely know where you're coming from there, Sean, where it's you're kind of intimidated by the fan base to kind of stay away from stuff. But no, I definitely feel they are definitely worth the watch for sure. So sorry Bart, what's your opinions on Harry Potter?
Yeah, all right. So my sister read every single one of the books. I still haven't. I don't really have any interest in it, honestly. I have watched the movies. I've watched them several times now, I say, and I do enjoy them a lot. I think they're a great time. I think my family has kind of turned into an event where every other Christmas we'll watch Harry Potter all the way through, and then the odd Christmas we'll watch Lord of the Rings. So it's like a 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 kind of thing, which is awesome. So that it's really kind of become an event for me, and I have seen them enough times. But just like you, the first 2 movies I really enjoyed. You had Chris Columbus directing it, and I had just come off the Gremlins, so I was like, hell yeah, Chris Columbus. And then the third one, although it was praised as like the best one yet, I really didn't have a feel for it. I don't know what it was, because I think, like you said, like the first 2 are much more kid-oriented. It's kind of like reading The Hobbit and then going into Lord of the Rings. Like, Lord of the Rings is still really, really great, but it's so different from The Hobbit that you're like, oh, what the hell is this? Like, it's hard to enjoy it. But then when I was older, I watched them all again, all the way through, and I do really like them. And I think it's incredibly impressive that over, 4 directors, possibly 5, and 8 movies, they kept it, consistently great. Like, there isn't, an objectively bad Harry Potter movie. Yeah. There's ones that are better than others, but I wouldn't say that one of them is
ratings bad, overall. Like, the difference between different films is maybe, just a touch between each movie. Like, they're fairly consistent overall for, the reaction to them, which is, again, as you said, really impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the community around it, like you said, is can be a bit hostile to newcomers, especially if they've only seen the films. Like my sister, for example, she would be like, "Oh, this wasn't there, this wasn't there, this wasn't there," and I'd be like, I don't know, I'm just enjoying the films. But they do kind of gatekeep it. It's like people who wear band shirts. They're like, "Oh, who's your favorite, I don't know, member of the band, and what's your favorite album from 1961?
No, dude, it's like,
I don't know.
Oh, you like guns? Name every gun then.
Yeah, literally.
Shit like that.
I don't know. I'm just trying to enjoy the film. Like, you're just like, why do you have to make it such a cult-like experience for me? God.
You like Pokemon? Name every Pokemon.
Name every Pokemon. Literally all 1,200, 1,300 of them. Yeah, but there's definitely that community around it. But it has become a bit looser and detached ever since Fantastic Beasts.
Child.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it started there. I think the Curse of the Cursed Child. The Cursed Child, I think, was the play. Yeah, that kind of kickstarted it, and then Fantastic Beasts, and then kind of people started taking a step back from J.K. Rowling and her obscene tweets. Yeah. But So it's become easier to access since then, but prior to that, it was locked down. It was hard to get in there.
I mean, I still know some. Like, okay, controversial opinion. I read the first Harry Potter book. I did not like it. It was really bad. And the common thing I hear is, "Oh, it's the first book. You got to give it a chance." Read okay, this is a not fair comparison at all. But I read
the Bible. That's the first book.
I read Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings. That's the first book in the Stormlight Archive. That is so much better than or The Wheel of Time or any of those series. Read the first book there. They're so much better than Harry Potter. And probably not a fair comparison. That's a children's book. These books were made for an older audience. Fair. But they're both fantasy, and I'm considering it an acceptable comparison. So
they're the same.
But I don't know. Maybe, and I've heard that, you read it and you grew up with it because they were released so sparsely. But it's kind of, I don't know. I just never found the appeal of the first book. I did not like the first book at all. And I couldn't get into the second one. I didn't want to waste my time, honestly. Like it's and people have told me you got to read the second one or it only gets good until this part. But no, if you don't catch me with the first book, I mean, I don't remember. I don't think it has a very high page count, but it's like I'm not taking another month. I'm not taking another month to read another friggin' book. Like it takes me long enough to read as is. If I hate the second one, what am I supposed to read the third one?
First 4 books, but I haven't read beyond that. And I could see where you're coming with the first book. I think definitely it's written a lot weaker than the rest of them. Even the second one to an extent. The third and fourth ones definitely got better for writing, but the fourth book is humongous. It's gigantic. I think this will also be a controversial opinion. Even though I haven't read all the books, out of the books I've read and the movies I've seen, I think the movies have a better way of rounding out the story and making them more concise and giving you everything you need. Because really the things that are missing from the movies are just like the little in-between sections that are like, just learning a bit more about like everything surrounding this character or surrounding that character, or like little elements here and there that like help you understand things a bit more. But I think the movies, and I think telling of their like, their audience ratings and their critical acclaim, I think is a very obvious sign that they've done a good job in taking the book material and turning it into a film.
Yeah, the movies feel very consistent, which is very impressive. And if what you say about the books is anything to go off, I don't know, I wouldn't call them better or anything, because I haven't read the book, so I think my opinion on this is kind of invalid, but I don't know, it's pretty impressive to keep 8 movies consistent and then have the movies be like, they're ramping up to something.
I definitely feel what you mean. I'm not saying that, and the other thing, you can watch, these movies are like 2.5 hours long, 2 hours. You can watch that in 2 hours. I know some readers are fast. It takes me like a month to read a 100-page book. So if I can watch something in 2 hours and then go on, if I can watch the whole series in a day as opposed to reading the whole series in a year, I'd rather take the day than opposed to that. But I'm not saying all. What was the last episode where I talked about books and movies for a little bit? I'm not saying all movie adaptations of books are good, and I think it was it. Yeah, I think it was episode 7 or no, episode 8. I think it was episode 8.
It's a movie that people liked that we didn't, so I think that was it.
Yeah, what Stephen King did. So I'm not there's definitely movies that are not as good as the book. And there's definitely the opposite where the movies are better than the book. But I do feel like that certain fan bases kind of take it to an extreme where it's, oh, you like the movies and haven't read the books, you're not a true fan.
Yeah, they're very possessive. Yeah, for sure.
So I do feel like that is kind of an unfair judgment. So anyways, we'll move on unless anyone has any last notes on Harry Potter.
No, I'm happy to move on unless Shawn.
No, I think I've said everything I want to say.
All right, Bart. What's the next film?
I think you're
today?
next.
Oh no, it is me. All right. So
dogs don't wear pants.
Geez, yeah. So this
Fuck
is a weird.
You for recommending that.
This is a weird movie. I found this movie on Shudder, believe it or not. And I just, I saw it. I thought it was weird, so I clicked on it. And what I was expecting was this super, like, 80s inspired, neon lights, kind of weirdly, like, erotic horror film. That's what I was expecting. What I got was this weirdly wholesome movie. It's about a dad. It's about a family, and his wife. The mother dies of drowning, and basically he finds this woman, this dominatrix, that whenever she chokes him, he sees glimpses of his wife. So he continues to pursue her so that he can basically get strangled to death to see the last moments of his wife, to kind of have closure. And as he's doing this, he kind of, separates himself from his daughter and his work and stuff in order to pursue this. And then at the end, he kind of, from what I kind of got from it, I mean, I unfortunately I was not able to rewatch this. I watched it a while ago, but I do remember the ending he kind of what am I thinking of? So he kind of re-establishes himself and kind of rights his wrongs and gets closure on the situation in a really weird in a really weird way. Like, I think he gets his tooth ripped out, and then they kind of have this moment of closure, and then the ending is just kind of him accepting the loss of his wife. I could be wrong. I don't know. Bart, did you end up seeing it?
I did, and I wanted to curse you for continuously recommending movies where people get their teeth forcibly removed, because that was a rough scene to watch. That went on longer than Dogtooth. Woof. And so before I really dive into this, I watched a bit of an interview on the director, J.P. Valakiapa. That is entirely wrong,
German?
But it's my best attempt.
Is it Finnish or German?
It's Finnish, yeah.
Finnish, that's what I thought.
It's got these accents on the A's at the end. I don't want to... That was my best attempt, I'll leave it at that. But regardless, I watched an interview prior to watching the actual movie, just to kind of get like a taste of it. And he described it as a romantic comedy, which personally I don't see anywhere in this. There's some dark comedy, maybe?
I found it funny
if you really look for it.
I found it funny when she lights the candles on the dude's chest and she has to piss them out. I thought that was so funny.
And and she can't pee, so she has to dampen them out with her hands, and they're all burnt at the end. I mean,
it was so gross, but so funny.
It was, yeah. So this movie. There's a lot to say, so I'll say my part, and then Shawn can go, and I'll try to go again. But yeah, so you kind of gave a bit of a synopsis there. There's a bunch of strange moments, but the overarching story, I think, is quite well told. Like, it's an unconventional way of dealing with grief, and you can kind of you see all the stages. You got your despair, your anger, your bargaining, your depression, and your acceptance. Those are actually quite well illustrated, but it's just cool to see it in such an unconventional way. And I think the plot, the narrative itself, is very interesting. Like, where else would you see a man coping with the death of his wife, who died who drowned? Yeah, like, he literally asphyxiates himself to kind of relive that moment of drowning with her until he gets pulled away. Like, I think that's really creative, and that's not something you could see anywhere else, or even, market for that matter. I don't know. I think that's really cool, in my opinion. But yeah, like you said, there's that kind of, once he delves into this world of the dominatrix, there's this hyper stylized color and music attached to it, which is kind of cool, which is really contrary to his life prior to it, where it's just him in his house, and it's kind of dull, washed out, I don't know, grays, blacks.
Yeah.
And then, but I think what's really cool is when his daughter has like this concert, and he's with the dominatrix, and his daughter is doing a concert that he was supposed to go to by himself. But so he's getting choked out, and the camera kind of pans over, and it goes to like the wall, and there's like chains hanging on the wall, and you think it's just like the wall of the dominatrix's room. But then it keeps going with the same color grading, but it switches over to the girl playing the drums, like his daughter. And it you kind of see the way this unhealthy obsession with this girl has kind of tainted his entire life, and his obsession with the past, which I thought was really well done. You see the kind of toll it's taken on everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just kind of my my thing on it. One part that I really enjoyed. Shawn, I'll let you chat before I go any deeper.
No,
have you seen it?
I haven't. I mean, I don't have too much to add. So I'm just looking at like the screenshots right now of the film, and looks very colorful. It looks very interesting. Mm-hmm. My entire screen is mostly red. However, but it looks really interesting.
Yeah, there's some.
But yeah, I don't have too much to add.
If you're wondering about the title,
yes, actually, I am.
I was.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dogs Don't Wear Pants is. I was also wondering, like, what the heck is that? So the dominatrix refers to the lead character, Joa, potentially.
Mona. I think it's Mona. Is her name?
Yeah, no, I meant the guy.
Oh, yeah. It's Joe.
Juha. Yeah. She refers to him as dog, and he has to be like a complete sub and like get on his hands and knees and like lick her feet and whatnot, like a dog would. And then she tells him to get naked, and she says, "Dogs don't wear pants," and that's where that came from. So I was very curious, but she said it.
Man, I figured that out. I read the synopsis and I saw dominatrix, and I thought, is that because she makes him act like a dog?
Yeah, you put that together a lot faster than I did.
I
was like, I wonder if there's dogs in this.
No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I thought it was weirdly wholesome. Like, I kind of felt like Mona, the character of Mona, also had kind of dad or father issues, right? To kind of be in the lifestyle that she was, and then, like, weird as it was, there was kind of a bond between the two of Juan and Mona having, as weird as it was, kind of almost that situation where she was kind of acting as a parent figure towards the end, I would say. Definitely not at the beginning, but kind of towards the end, more of a superiority figure. And I mean, I loved the ending. Like, the ending made me laugh out loud when he shows up at the club and he's in full leather, and it was just kind of him dancing around. I thought that was hilarious. And I mean, like I said, it's I thought I was in for a slasher and a horror, like a slasher horror film was what I was expecting. And then what I got was this weirdly erotic drama. So not at all what I was expecting, but I really enjoyed it way more than I thought, because I thought this was just going to be like a B movie level horror where it's just kind of over the top. But I got a really good story, really good filmmaking, and fantastic acting. So
yeah, I think the ending is indeed, like you said, really, really great. Like at the end, he goes to this club where everyone's just, it's dominatrixes and whatever people. It's just like a sex club. Everyone's just doing their thing. Yeah. And I think he's kind of gotten over his grief. He's reached that state of acceptance.
Yeah, he's reached it.
But he's reached it in a way that's much safer and like sanctioned, I guess, than it was prior to that. And the ending, honestly, the music in that when he's dancing is an incredible bop.
Well, because also
I was kind of dancing around with it. It was awesome.
Also, I think it was kind of more so when he was kind of hiding him getting choked and him entering the world of BDSM from his family.
Yes.
And while he was hiding it and not accepting it, he was kind of fading away from everyone because he was keeping it a secret. And then at the end, he wasn't hiding it. He wasn't hiding it. He was just like, here, I'm here. You know, he's in outfit. They let him into the club and he's dancing around and he's happy. And even at the end, before that scene happens, you see her, I believe he's like taking his daughter to a date or something, if I remember correctly. Like he's hugging his daughter and he's telling her that he's proud or something like that. There was like a moment.
It was surprisingly wholesome.
Yeah,
with very satisfying.
Definitely not a family movie, but definitely a good movie, and I really enjoyed it way more than I thought I would.
I gotta say, like I was kind of torn going into it. I was like, what is this? But it came together really well, and I think it's a great way of, you know, expressing these different kind of coping mechanisms of grief. That it's not just like, I don't know, your alcohol and your drugs, and then you get better. There's a whole big, you know, variety to it, which I enjoy seeing.
I liked, just before we move on, I did like this scene where he gets that other girl to choke him and she can't stop laughing.
It's so awkward.
She just cannot stop laughing, and it's just like, oh my god. It's so painful, but it's so.
I was like, dude, just ease her into this. Like, damn. But at the same time, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, it was brutal. Stuff. All right, Bart. What's the other movie you brought today?
So next, I didn't notice this at first when I picked these movies, but also in the vein of, I don't know, identity and whatnot, I have Richard Linklater's Dazed and Confused. So I think this is the first Richard Linklater movie I watched. Then I watched Boyhood, and then the Before trilogy. And with each movie, I've liked him more and more, and then re-watching, I've liked him more and more. So I think I watched this, I don't know, a year out of high school or so. But it deals with a lot of the same themes as American Beauty. We're just kind of trying to, I don't know, sculpt out your own place in the world.
Okay.
And I won't get too, like, I don't know, deep and philosophical with it. It was just a really, really enjoyable movie. So I thought going into it, I was kind of, it would have been like your, I don't know, your Project X, your...
Yeah, like a party movie, kind of, like a...
End of the world kind of thing.
Like a college comedy kind of...
Yeah, like your nostalgic, I don't know, the ones that just kind of thrive off nostalgia, where you got like your, I don't know, Leonard Skinner playing in the back and people are like drinking and it's like, all right, whatever, it's entertaining, but there's not much more to it than that.
Yeah.
But this movie actually surprised me quite a bit. It's got a lot of interesting characters, a lot of fun characters, and you remember them after you see it, and they have their own, I don't know, their own insecurities, their own ambitions, their own fears, their own journeys, whatnot. And like one key scene that kind of introduces it and sums it up is the character of Pink. And he's a football player for his high school. And the coaches want him to join like for the next year so they can go on to like, I don't know, go into scholarships at colleges and just, you know, progress in the world of sports and whatnot.
Yeah.
And at first he's kind of into this, you know, he wants to pursue this, but as it goes on, he receives this slip from one of his coaches saying, all right, you got to do better in classes if you want to, you know, continue on this trend, and he doesn't really want to. And then there's one scene where he's approaching with all of his buddies and they're all like, I don't know, wearing clothes as they would. Like, not saying that, like interesting clothing, like your 70s, 80s clothing, like, you know, everyone's being their rebellious individual selves.
Yeah, yeah.
But all the coaches are wearing like their short white shorts and blue shirts, and they're all in uniform. And he gets the note from them and he just tosses it away. I think that's a pretty interesting, like, visual cue to it all. Like, he doesn't want to end up like them. He wants his own self. It's kind of hard to explain if you haven't seen it, but it's just a really interesting film, and that theme just kind of carries on throughout the entire film, where people just want to...
A coming of age.
Yeah.
style
Definitely got
film.
that. Yeah, it's just a really surprisingly good coming of age film.
It's one of those movies where it's kind of at the, it's like, what is it? It's at the end of high school. So you're graduating high school, but then you're entering college. Right? Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, oh, the excitement that everything's over, but then the anxiety of where to go next.
Yeah.
And I think the movie does a pretty good job in capturing that. I mean, it's also just kind of a chill movie, like it's just kind of a hangout movie. That's what Tarantino.
You can have a lot of fun watching it.
It's a hangout movie. I know that he labeled it as one of his favorite movies of all time. It's just a movie where you hang out with the characters, you get to know everybody, you get to hang out with everybody. So, definitely a good watch. I don't have too much to say about it. I mean, I liked it. I haven't seen it recently, but I do remember this film and liking it quite a bit. So that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
How about you there, Shawn?
I have not. However, it is a movie that I have seen multiple clips of, just like randomly, a lot. But like, for some reason, I've still not got it. Like, yeah, exactly. All right. It's just like, I don't know why I have not watched this movie. But it always struck me as like a movie, as you were saying, Hunter, as being like just kind of like a hangout movie, if you will. It looks very chill and like a good time. So I mean,
yeah,
it looks very approachable, like a movie that's just like, oh yeah, you're gonna throw it on and have a good time.
Yeah, I think it's, like you said, approachable. I think the movie at its core is just, I don't know, a journey towards agency. Like at all times, like out of high school, all these choices are kind of being made for you by either your parents or, I don't know, college admissions or the workforce or whatnot.
Yeah.
Like everything becomes pretty cookie cutter. And in this, it's just, I don't know. Like, for example, Mike, he wants to fight someone at a party. He's kind of been a nerd his entire life in his high school. Doesn't really fight. Everyone laughs at him when he says, I want to fight someone. And yet he still does. He just sucker punches this guy at a party and gets the crap beat out of him. But in the end, he's still happy he did it just because it was on his own accord. I think that's kind of, what you can take away from it. It's a good movie. Great movie. Very entertaining movie. Very fun movie. Soundtrack is absolutely banger. And I'd recommend it to anyone.
All right. Moving on, Shawn, what's the last movie you have to talk about today?
So I have Martin Scorsese's Hugo movie. Okay. It's funny because I hadn't really watched too many Martin Scorsese movies really before I ever saw Hugo. And I always assumed that his movies were very much similar to like, with no knowledge at all of what his movies were like. I just assumed his movies were very like artsy, like kind of almost like Wes Anderson movies. So I was very like put off by anything that somebody was like, oh, it's a Martin Scorsese movie. I was just like, no. So like,
I think I know where you may have gotten that opinion on him.
But yeah, like, I was just like, I never really wanted to watch any of his movies really. So like, when I think this was another movie that I was like forced into watching, but I don't know the exact specific circumstances. I don't remember. I just remember somebody being like, okay, we're watching this movie. I was like, okay, sure, I guess we're watching it. At the time, though, luckily I did not know it was a Martin Scorsese movie. I think that's what made me not immediately be like, no, I don't want to watch it. Because I think if I knew that in advance, I probably would have just thought, no, I don't want to watch it. For those who don't know what it is, it's basically just kind of like a fictional historical film. It takes things from history, but it's like a story fictionally based. It's kind of takes parts from history but rewrites it to make an interesting story out of it. it's mostly based around like a kid that kind of discovers the life of George Méliès, which is an actual person, which is like one of the earliest filmmakers. Um, and it basically just kind of shows him um, finding out things about his life and kind of connecting things to the kid's life, and essentially helping him to kind of uncover his past and kind of restore his legacy,
his work. And
so I mean, it's a really interesting film. I think for me it has kind of that, like in an overall sense, it kind of has that I don't know, Disney movies have it too, where it's like that kind of whimsical sense to it, I guess. I don't know. It seems like a little bit more fairy tale like without it really being like a fairy tale. I don't know how to explain it, but it feels very like positive in a way.
Yeah,
even if things are going bad.
Yeah, like
and I think that
for sure,
that really like
for sure
helped me enjoy the movie more, because it had just like a very almost like wholesome feeling to it throughout the whole movie. And I like the little bits of like comedic moments that it has, as well as some of the more serious moments. It has a really good balance of different parts of the story, and I think the pacing is really well done. I also love that Sacha Baron Cohen is
it's
station inspector. That's amazing. But yeah, anyway, Hunter, continue on.
Yeah, I just two things here. The first thing, yeah, it's not a mean movie. Like there's no, I mean, Sacha Baron Cohen's character is kind of the villain through the story, but he's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's just doing his job, and then you kind of learn about what he's been through, and you kind of see his side of the story and why. Like he's just doing his job pretty much the movie. And at the end of the movie, I think he even kind of becomes, he's kind of like, he kind of becomes a nicer guy in the end. And I really like the historical aspect. I mean, I saw this film pretty recently as well. I don't know if when you've seen it, but I saw it pretty recently for the first time, and it was good. I really enjoyed it. I really liked kind of the historical, because I think the film did try to be as accurate to Martin Scorsese tried to be really accurate to George Méliès' life and how, and his films and the making of his films, and it was honestly like a really, really good history lesson there, where they're describing how he did his sets and how he used his kind of illusionist history in films and stuff. So it was definitely really, really interesting to watch that part. And I mean, there was some really fun sequences in the film as well. Like I remember the train kind of crashing into the station at one scene, and there was some interesting scenes in the film that were also like it's not a kids movie. It's more of a family movie, I would say.
Yeah.
You can watch it with everyone.
You can really watch it.
There's not a
you can really watch
specific
it like
audience.
whatever age that you are. It doesn't really matter. Definitely is like a E for everyone.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, if you will. And one thing too, just before Bart, you go, the one part that I remember visually from this movie that I think is really cool, and I'm happy that was done, was that, so like earlier in the movie, you kind of hear of like the history of George Méliès, and they recreate a lot of like stuff with Ben Kingsley, and they kind of recreate his movies with Ben Kingsley, and show you those, and then towards the end of the movie, they show you like the actual movies. And it's really cool to see like the comparison between the actual thing and like the thing they recreated at the start, or closer to the first part of the movie. And so I think that's really, really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Sorry, Bart. What were your thoughts on this movie?
Well, my thoughts on this will be brief, because I only picked up the Blu-ray
Wow.
a few weeks ago, and I have it sitting here in plastic wrap, looking at me, and I have yet to see it. But it's funny that you say how you were kind of opposed to watching it, or not so much opposed, more so like, I don't know,
Yeah.
reluctant, I guess. So I had the exact opposite. So I adore Martin Scorsese, and I think I've seen, I want to say, most of his films. So it was interesting to see that he went to like such a, I don't know, family-friendly, childlike movie based on his catalog of films.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, his other movies are anything like that, anything but that. So I always wanted to see Hugo, but I just never did. So yeah, but I have it sitting here now, and it shall be watched. But it's just funny how we had like opposite experiences to that.
It's definitely a good film. The one thing, sorry, just before we kind of wrap it up here, when I interrupted you earlier there, Sean, saying I think I know why you were kind of turned off from Martin Scorsese. I'm not sure if this is the reason, but I remember in school there was just a burning hatred for Martin Scorsese amongst everybody for really no reason other than the fact he said he wasn't a fan of Marvel movies, and everyone took offense to that. They were just like, he was just like, not a big fan of Marvel movies, and everyone's like, I took that personally.
Yeah.
Literally a hate crime.
And there was just so, like, you couldn't really talk about, like, I remember, I won't really keep the specifics just out of respect and privacy, but I do remember a specific class where for really no reason he would just get hated on, and it'd just be like, but I mean, I like his movies. Like, did anyone else see The Departed or The Irishman? I like those. Why? What's wrong with those movies?
Was that quite a while ago when I saw Hugo?
Man, I don't.
So like, no, that wasn't the reason for me.
Okay.
I don't really know the reason. I think I was just put into my head that like the kind of movies he did without really knowing anything. Since then I've seen like other movies of his. And yeah, like Hugo definitely is one that like. Again, even if I had seen his other films prior to watching Hugo, if I was not told it was a Martin Scorsese film, I would not have guessed it was a Martin Scorsese film. It's well done. It's definitely not something that I would have expected from him.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big Martin Scorsese fan. Really good movie. I would recommend it, especially even if you are kind of turned off from his movies. For some reason, I did not know there was so many people that were kind of turned off from his movies. But I do recommend them, and I do especially recommend Hugo, even if it's kind of the first one to kind of get you introduced to his movies. I find that I find it is a kind of a better one to start with, I would say. It's not as intense, not as hard to follow. And it's just kind of a nice pace throughout the whole time. And that would probably be my recommendation of where to start with his movies. But yeah, I do agree. It is a great movie. Any final notes on Hugo?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
No, but I'll let you know next week how I feel about it.
All right. All right, well, that about wraps us up for episode 9 of EchoVideo Podcast. Thanks again for joining us. Next week, I believe we will talk about the Snyder Cut of Justice League. So everyone watch the Snyder Cut, I guess, and get notes, get all that good stuff down, and that will be for next week. Other than that, we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.